ahead.
Okay.
Yep, all set.
Hi, everyone. I'm here in the town office, with Carrie and Lauren Bruce, and we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 others on, or more, actually, I guess, on Zoom. So,
Yeah.
and I see some people were, Bob and Peter and, you folks were present at the first meeting, I think. But a couple people were not. So let me give a brief summary of what the proposal is. I'll try to be as brief as I can. And after that, I can answer whatever questions anyone has. This was kind of my idea, after, as most of you know, I was the town rep on the Ferry Service Advisory Board for a number of years. I was the alternate before I was the town rep. Gabe was the town rep for a period of time, and Peter is now the town rep. I've stayed somewhat involved. And one of the things the advisory board has is a finance subcommittee, and I was on it, and I've stayed in touch with them. And what precipitated this, sorry about that. What precipitated this from my perspective was, last fall, the subcommittee saw the 2027 or 2026 budget for the ferry service, and it went up 15.8%. And we've been told that there are no tariff increases immediately coming along, but if it keeps rising like that, there is no doubt but that there will be additional tariff increases. And right now, as everyone knows, we have a peak season and off season setup. That was put into place after Tariff 8, and the idea of that, which was a concept with which I did not have any violent agreement, was to try to keep the rates low 8 months out of the year and raise them during the summer months, because there's a lot of demand during the summer months, and it would not adversely affect revenue. So I think the concept is fine, but the problem is, as a practical matter, the rates for people who live on the island during the 4 months of the peak season are extraordinarily high. If you have a family of 4, meaning a husband and a wife and 2 kids, and the kids are subject to the tariff, which I think is 5 to 17 or something like that, a trip to the mainland June, July, August, and September cost that family $83.50. And it's probably going to go up. And that really struck me as kind of ridiculously high. And my main concern when I proposed this to the select board was that I think this island as a community needs young families, and if young families come with medical issues, eye doctors, dental people, we have a lot of support stuff, organizations on the island, but we don't have vets, we don't have eye doctors, optometrists, we don't have a pharmacy, although the island market fortunately will pick things up for you. But if you have a young family, you of necessity are going to have to be going off the island 12 months out of the year for one reason or another. And if people looking at property, if they are looking at property, and we all know that there's affordable property issue as well. If you know you have to go off the island a couple times a month, that's $200. And there's no real easy way to solve this, but this to me was a simple way of solving this issue in the short term. we've been arguing, I have argued, Gabe argued, Peter's been arguing for a resident rate from the ferry service, which is not an unusual thing around the country. But DOT and the commissioner have been very reluctant to do that, which I think is very unfortunate, but be that as it may, it isn't gonna happen in the immediate future. So if they're going to do nothing, I thought the easiest thing we could do is consider this proposal, which would be basically to just have the town buy peak season tickets and sell them at the town office for off-season rates to island residents. It would be a pilot program. That's really important to note because this may or may not be successful. So the idea is to do it as a pilot program, and limited to, and the limitation, so that cost is a huge issue. I've been watching the select board deal with the budget, and it's not easy, and I give them all kinds of credit because it's not an easy task, and they've done a very good job, I think, of trying to be responsible fiscally. But this will cost money, and so I brought the proposal to the select board. They asked us to create a committee. The committee was primarily me, Peter, Gabe, Brian Bohannon, and Dave Dubord sat in on a lot of the meetings. Tina was officially a member of the committee, but I don't think she attended any meetings. But so the proposal was to offer to have each household designate a head of household. And to agree with, sign a written agreement, which is part of the packet there, which has some limitations on transferring the tickets and using the tickets and agreeing that sales are final and things of that nature. The head of the household would be allowed to buy up to 10 vehicle tickets and up to 10 tickets for each individual household member. It's limited to just regular cars or pickups and walk-on tickets because this is going to put a burden on the town office, obviously, and no one's going to be able to run out and measure cars and stuff like that. Excuse me, measure trucks and dump trucks and stuff like that. So it would be limited to that. It's a pretty simple proposal, really. And the packet includes an overview, which is basically a lot of what I just told you. And it also provides a draft agreement for people to sign at the town office. It would be limited to town residents. That's another kind of cost consideration that we have to take into account. And for ease of just making this thing work, the committee pretty much agreed to recommend that the town residency can be hard to decide at times, but what we agreed to recommend was simply that if you're a registered voter in the town of Islesboro, you're a town resident, end of story. So the folks in the town office can, if there's any issue, can just look at the voter rolls, and that would be it. So that's the proposal. Another fiscal consideration is we did a budget which we tried to do on the conservative side, and what we did was as of the last census, there were about 602 residents of this town. What we did was say hypothetically, knowing this was not accurate, but what we said was hypothetically, if half the people are couples, just a couple, and half the residents rather are couples, and half the people in residences are families of 4, and they use all 10 tickets in a year, what would it cost? And it would cost about $54,000, a little bit more than 50, say 55,000. And I asked Brian to try to give people an indication of what that would mean to them. without going into mill rates and stuff, which nobody gets, because, and then the estimate is that if we were to approve this, it would cost $8 per $100,000 of valuation. So if you're valued at $400,000, your tax bill would go up 32 bucks. If you're valued at 500, it would go up 40, so on and so forth. And there is also a limitation. If the wheels come off the bus and somehow we get above that 40, 54, $55,000, the agreement includes the fact that if we go above that, the program would be suspended. As a practical matter, I doubt that would happen this year because, as it turns out, if the warrant is approved, the money is not available until the 1st of July anyway. So, and we, the first week of July is kind of a nightmare anyway, because we're dealing with July 4th and things of that nature. So as a practical matter, we're not going to be dealing with 4 months. We'll probably be dealing with a little less than 3. So having said that, that's about as quick as I can be. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any, or we can listen to comments too. Unfortunately, unfortunately, as the case may be, the select board has, in its wisdom, changed the order of the town meeting. And this proposal is next to last, with the last thing being the election of town officials. So they basically completely turned things around from what we're used to, but hey, it may make for a long day, but just so you know. So, happy to take questions or comments or whatever.
I have a question.
Sure.
Like you said, this is a short-term fix. What are we thinking long-term?
Well, the idea is to see how successful it is. And this is, to my way of thinking, it's a short-term fix and it's not a panacea. But, if we could, by virtue of this, attract 2 families with 2 children of school age, that would increase the school population 10%. If we could attract 4 families, so much the better. But, and again, I don't see this as a remedy for everything, but I think that the issue really is the affordability of living on this island. And for a family of 4, $83.50 for 4 months a year to go to the mainland is not a very affordable option.
So have we reached out to our representatives? Isn't Mike Ray on the transportation committee?
Yes, God bless him. This is one of many efforts. The most we got out of DOT the last time around was not very favorable, because what they wanted to do, they pay all the capital costs. So when we get a new boat, when and if we get a new boat, it's paid for entirely by the state with a lot of federal funds, obviously, but we don't pay any of that. We pay half the budgeted expenditures on an annual basis. The fare box revenue is responsible for that, and the state highway fund is responsible for the other 50%. The only, I was going to say concession, but it really was not a concession, was when we were having the fight about keeping the boats here at night, or keeping the boats on all the islands at night for emergency transport. The then commissioner, who has since retired, suggested a change of that formula to 45% fare box revenue, 45% state, and 10% service. But you're dealing with right now an organization whose expenses are $18 million a year, and very short order, they're gonna be around 20. So, if 10% of the expenses are to be paid by the service towns, you're looking at like $2 million. And the problem is that the towns would clearly be at each other's throats. Because this is an episode. And fortunately, that was in this white paper that the DOT versus transportation community. And fortunately, that seems to be now on the back burner. That was not a good alternative, clearly. I think we keep pressing them for a resident tariff, and I think we keep pressing them for maybe a senior citizen tariff, and maybe keep pressing them for a commuter tariff that makes some sense from a commuter's perspective. Because the first two we don't have, and the third one is not right now. Their idea of a concession was instead of having to use the 7 days, we make it 14, which is ridiculous. So
how can island residents put more pressure on?
Well, having Mike Ray on the transportation committee is huge. Pressing Chip Curry to get on the transportation committee wouldn't hurt.
I haven't heard back from him when I try to press him.
I've had, discussions with him, but he's on a couple of committees that he likes being on, and there's a limit there. I would say that from our perspective, we're doing a lot better than we used to. But we've got some representatives on the transportation committee that are now around the mid-coast area, which is huge, because we have a lot of support on the mid-coast, in the mid-coast area. When I was the town rep, I did a survey of who was on the transportation committee, because it's generally highways and bridges that they're dealing with. And when I was on it, there was one representative from Arundel, Bill Diamond from Wyndham, one representative from Bar Harbor, and everybody else was west of the Turnpike. And they're interested in things like the airline, Route 9 and Route 11 and up in the county and all that, and understandably so. But we didn't have any voice on that committee. That has since changed, not dramatically, but appreciably. And that's a good thing. And just keep talking. Mike will listen to you, and he knows the issues, and I've been talking, I maintain a conversation with him. Yeah, and I think everyone needs to do that. We have a gubernatorial candidate who's from North Haven, or Vinyl Haven, excuse me, and that certainly wouldn't hurt. It's kind of an obvious thing, but having, North Haven, Vinyl Haven, and Hillsborough have an awful lot in common. We carry the burden because we're a big revenue generator, but we also have a lot of issues in common. So, Hannah is well aware of the ferry issues, and she's an island girl. So,
it looks like Impy has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I couldn't find the hand to raise my hand on this thing. Anyway, I have just a couple of questions. They're very detailed questions, and I picked up on it when I was reading over the minutes from your last meeting. And it has to do with dispersing the tickets. You have a head of household that's, is allowed for 10 walk-on tickets. But dealing with a family of 4, it says that they may get 10 walk-on tickets for each other household member. I wonder if others should be taken out, because in a family of 4, does that mean they can get 10 vehicle tickets and then they can get 40 walk-on tickets if you include the head of household?
No, the idea would be 10 vehicle tickets and then 30 walk-on tickets, max.
What would be the max again?
The max would be 10 vehicle tickets, excuse me, and then 10 tickets for each other member of the household, which would be walk-on tickets. So you get,
So if it's each other member, it would be 3 people. So that would be 30 walk-on tickets.
that would be the maximum, yes.
Okay, 30, not 40.
No, not 40, 30.
Okay.
Okay.
So the way you describe that is accurate, then keep that word in there, other. Okay. So,
Okay.
what's the other thing? Oh, I wonder if thought has been given as to, you discussed how the resident, when they sign this thing, agrees not to transfer or pass these on to anyone else. If there's a way of keeping track of that, I don't know if when they buy them at the town office, they might put a big R on these tickets to indicate that they were purchased by a resident or some way, because if there's no way of, identifying for the attendants who look at these tickets down the ferry line, if there's no marking that they were purchased by an island resident, then I could easily see these tickets floating all over the place.
Well, I kind of, we had some discussions about that, and I think the general consensus was to, rely on people to be good people, and a lot of that is because we're trying to. I don't think the committee was all that excited about having line attendants playing, policemen. And we certainly don't want people getting in arguments while they're waiting for and you know what, I mean, the main reason for that, frankly, is because back in the day, when we used to buy tickets here for half of what we bought before over on the mainland, there was no prohibition against anyone doing that.
Right.
You could buy a ticket on the mainland, come over here and buy 10 tickets over here, and there was no rule that said you couldn't do that. And I know a lot of people would send tickets up to Aunt Joan to come over for July 4th and all that kind of stuff, but that wasn't against the rules. That was just the system that was imposed by DOT and the Main State Ferry Service. But having said that,
Wasn't that found to be unconstitutional or something to deny selling off the lower prices to off-island residents?
Well, but my point is that there was no rule against it. The problem arises because what killed that system was the fact that the DOT commissioners and others thought that the island people were, quote, gaming, unquote, the system. And they weren't gaming the system. That was the system. But the perception was that they were gaming the system, hence what we have now.
Okay, so I guess that leads to my third question for this evening. In your defining of residency, you list 3 things. Of course, you've mentioned if you're registered to vote here. That sounds like a pretty good idea. But you list having a Maine driver's license or being on the island for 183 days a year. I'm wondering which, if any, of these 3 things are required.
Actually,
somebody has a Maine driver's license. Is that enough to qualify them, or would they have to? At least they have to be registered to vote on Islesboro.
That, we had further discussions about that after our first meeting, and the consensus of the majority of the committee was that we ought to just have it registered voters, because and that's primarily driven from an administrative standpoint. It would just be really hard to play either being an IRS commissioner or looking at people's credit. I mean, they do crazy stuff like checking your credit cards and all that kind of. But we got two people out in the front office here, and so I think that the consensus was pretty much, let's just, if you're a registered voter in the town of Islesboro, you're a resident. If you're not, you're not.
Okay. So that tells us that we don't have to keep track of
Right.
People that have been here, 6 months or whatever 183 days is, and if they only have a driver's license, that's not sufficient.
Right. Well, that's part of the problem is, you got some people that might move here, believe it or not. But if they do, let them register to vote. We actually had, and this was kind of funny, discussions about, well, what about people who as a constitutional right don't want to vote? And I'm like, well, that's fine, but register to vote and then don't vote.
Okay. All right. I'm pleased to hear that, because it could have gotten very messy, I think, if this comes to be and people have to sign, what they agree to. They see these three things. It's a little confusing.
No, we pretty much agree. Just make it registered voters.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If someone wants to be a resident, then register to vote.
Right.
Can you buy more than one ticket at a time, or is it just one at a time?
The idea is, yes, you could buy more than one at a time. And in fact, I would encourage people to do that.
It seems like that would be less stress.
Well, the agreement actually speaks to, you can only buy them during regular business hours at the town office, and people are very much encouraged not to buy them on the day of use, because there's a lot of business that gets done out there. There's property taxes, there's car registrations, there's boat registrations, blah, blah, blah. And the last thing that the folks out there need is someone running in and say, I got to make the 2:30 vote. So because they're going to have to wait in line, and too bad, so sad. But so the idea is, buy them early and often, and not in a rush. And if you use a credit card, you're going to get surcharged for it. But cash and checks are accepted too. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve on some of this. And the beginning of July will be a little bit busy, because we got to go buy the tickets too, and keep track of them and all that kind of stuff.
So there's no income associated with this, so it's not encouraging low income, or it's just.
That was discussed as well, and there were proponents of a need-based plan, but
that gets very complicated.
It gets really complicated, and the idea was keep this as simple as we possibly can to make it work.
Yeah. The only question I've heard just generally out there, and I haven't heard very much discussion at all, but the only comment I heard was people buying tickets and then selling them. And, they can't make more money unless they just up it a little bit, but keep it lower than what the cost of a ticket would be, but more than they paid for it. So they're not making much profit if they're going to sell,
Well, there's also part of the agreement is that if you break any of the rules that you've agreed to, you're not going to be allowed to buy any more tickets. And, I tend to think the vast majority of people on this island are really good people. So yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic that will not be an issue. Or would not be an issue, it hasn't passed, but, you know, but.
Thank you for working on this. I have to leave, but thank you so much for working on this issue. Appreciate it very much.
It's what I hope is a small step in the right direction. And in the meantime, and I think you raise a very good point, we gotta work on our representatives. And, you know, the problem, one of the problems is I think in Augusta, at least in the State House, the Transportation Committee has not been considered a really rock star job. But it could be.
Mhm.
You know, depending upon what issues you've got.
Yeah,
And they're still holding public hearings before another increase,
Well, they haven't proposed a tariff increase yet. I'm just concerned, I mean, the last budget went up almost 16% with inflation running at 3%. And the problem with us giving them money, as they were suggesting, is we do it, and we don't have any say in how it gets spent. We have no say in the budget, and it's the budgeted expenses that we get 50% of, not the actual expenses. And that's part of the statute, is the budgeted expenses. And it's just a really difficult situation, and unless and until it gets turned around, there's really not that much you can do. I mean, if you wanted to get really fancy, you could subsidize and you would be need-based and da. But, you know, there's a lot of complications that come with that. And I think a lot of people would be reluctant to do it too, because it has, you know. So this is really about, you know, Gabe and Peter and I and we tried to make it as simple as we possibly could. And affordable. And I should mention, you know, we also talked about 5 tickets and 15 tickets. And again, it's a pilot program, but the general consensus was that 5 really wouldn't have an impact on people over a 4-month period. 10 could. And 15 was getting pretty pricey. So we thought, you know, the consensus was, if, you know, let's shoot for 10 and see how it works, and see how many people take advantage of it, and see what the, you know, reaction of the residents is to it, and take it from there.
thank you,
You bet.
Peter and Gabe.
Thanks, folks. Are there any other questions on the from the Zoom folks? Okay, well, this was quicker than the last time around. It's only 6:35. But thank you for listening in and attending. And if anyone has any other questions, I'm here. I'm on the island. Happy to talk whatever you'd like.
Sounds good.
So I guess we can sign off.